is recording. Hey, while people roll into the room, I'm Gary DeHart with Insightful Accountant. We've got Will Hill and Julie Smith here for today's session. Just while people file into the room, let's get to our question of the day. And that is, what is your favorite fall food? I'm going to go with the food theme. Julie, ladies first.
I know that you like pumpkins so much, so I don't know where we're gonna go from there. Fall food, I mean, do we get to include Thanksgiving?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think for me it's Thanksgiving, putting everything on like one big plate, like the mashed potatoes, the corn, the gravy, and just I don't know, I like it all together. It's the one
So
day
it's
where
like,
it's like you just get to stack it together.
so we're going to go with the whole food group of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, sure.
I'm in. Oh, wait, but hold on. Since you mentioned Thanksgiving, are you a stuffing like in the bird or dressing on the side?
Probably on the side.
Yep. Okay. I grew up on the side, my wife and her family in the bird, and it's actually really good in the
Ooh.
bird. But um, so what do you think, Will? Where are you? Favorite food?
So first of
Fall
all,
food.
yeah, you can call me anything, but don't call me late for dinner. So I don't care where the stuffing is. I'll probably be eating it. Um, and the favorite fall food, I I will not say no to a piece of pecan pie
Mm.
that is sitting in front of me. I will even say yes to a piece of pecan pie that is sitting in front of me. I eat both kinds. So that's one of my favorite fall foods. It's also kind of Thanksgiving themed-ish. That's there. So
Well, I have a feeling that Thanksgiving is your favorite holiday. I don't know why.
it is not necessarily my favorite holiday, but it is my favorite food portion of the holiday. So I like other holidays a little bit more, but if you got to pick the food piece, I'll go ahead and gravitate right into the Thanksgiving meal. So
I'm with you. So even though it's October, we're all in for Thanksgiving. We're going to start now. It is time for Thanksgiving. We're just going to skip right over Halloween. It's not really a holiday anyway, but so we're straight into Thanksgiving. So for the next wow, it's only like 5 weeks away, isn't it? Oh boy, here we go. And that means Christmas is only what, 9 weeks away or so?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, which means year end's only 11 or
Tax
so
season's
weeks
great
basically
away.
segue to
Look
our
here.
at
topic.
that.
It's
Tax
a great
season's
segue to the
right
topic.
here. So, and the topic is pivot. Wait, what's the exact name? I have it written down somewhere, but I can't find it. I've got it right
We're
here.
getting into burnout conversations as we
There we
talk
Yeah.
about
go.
all these holidays coming so quickly. It's stressful. So,
When,
you know,
yep. So when to pivot and how to do it. So before I turn it over, I'm Gary DeHart again. Will Hill, Julie Smith are our presenters, and we thank you both for being here. Housekeeping, this is not CPE. It's only 30 minutes plus or minus. So there's no CPE. We will send you the link to our YouTube channel and a link to the archive for the slide deck. And I do want to, let me share my screen real quick and just share some information about our Be Insightful premium content program, in which basically it's an annual membership, $3.99 per year. We have 9 training tracks. We do about 3 a month. Sometimes there's 4. Like this month, we actually have 4 tracks that we're doing. And we're doing app comparisons, niche marketing, tech stack, migrations. Murph's focused on migrations, kind of especially with all that's going on with desktop. Do you stay with the new product, whatever they call it, or do you move into that Intuit enterprise suite, or do you just look elsewhere? We have a tax practice focus, Your Firm Accelerated, which is basically about firm growth, automations, a coaching corner, and then human resources. So quick poll question, if you would like, if I can find the, I lost my little table here. Here we go. Nope, still don't have it. Where'd it go? Stop sharing. I've lost everything. You guys are still with me, so I haven't lost everything. Can you guys see the tray?
no, you're sharing your whole screen there, Gary.
Still sharing. Okay, good. Oh, here we go. It's on my third screen. That's when we get confused. All right, so let me throw out this quick poll question, and that just is very simple. I just told you a little bit about our premium content program. If you'd like information on that, just say yes. If no, just say no. Or if you don't answer it, we won't bother you about it either. So just have this open for about 5 seconds. It's just a quick yes or no, and then we will turn this over and I'll go dark. All right, we'll wrap it up in 3, 2, and 1. Okay, thank you all. Will and Julie, thanks again. See you in about 30.
All right, well, so what a topic that seems so appropriate for today, right?
It does. It does. In fact, we could probably sit here and debate what is the worst week, the week of the deadline or the week after the deadline?
I
Oof.
think it's at least for me, I think it's the week of the deadline. The week after the deadline poses so many opportunities to improve from the week of the deadline, right? I don't know.
Oh, man, I feel like sometimes we put off everything else. And all of a sudden, if we're not careful, and I will get into some more, if we're not careful with our expectations, boom, that week after deadline feels like there's no let up. It's different. So it feels different because we're not in the monotony and the repetition, but it's still crushed if we're not careful. So
Well, and I think just like Gary just said, like you get out of that, you're here, it's year end. Well, what happens after year end? It's inevitable, right? It's the tax season just begins again. And so how do you kind of, be able to manage that? So, Will, we're going to talk about some burnout today. You want to give a quick intro? I know probably everybody here is sick of hearing about us, but I feel like maybe
yeah,
you've added a couple things to that, maybe.
no,
I know.
no. And I'm not added any kids either. So three's enough. They're fantastic. And I feel full at this point. So yeah, been around the industry a while. Love working with firms and help forward. So thanks.
And then there's me who, just got out of this wonderful tax extension season and doing lots of other things. As you guys may see, I had to, little still salty about it, so I don't want to talk too much about it, but I had to give up the Empower CPA. The Ohio Society of CPAs didn't like me for that. So we're gonna go with Sulet for now. But let's get into it, Will. So, burnout's
Yeah,
a real thing, especially in this industry, and it is not just the CPAs, the accountants that get to experience this. I think it's firms as a whole, and I feel like it's because it's on such a such deadline driven, and they're always coming, right? Like no matter what,
yeah,
there's always that next deadline. So you get through one and you barely get to breathe and the next one's looming. And I don't think, to the normal outside world who aren't immersed in this industry, that they understand how many deadlines exist in this industry.
yeah,
And, something that I started a couple years ago because like, the fact that everybody's on here and is aware of burnout and is aware of what it is in the industry, like awareness is key, right? Instead of head down, keep going, keep asking for more, keep going. I kind of created a calendar and I created a calendar for internally and externally. And it's just a calendar of all the deadlines, right? And it seems very, very overwhelming. But I think as we get into it, especially as you're growing and you're scaling and your admin team's getting bigger and people are, moving up in the hierarchy or whatever, it's having awareness around when that next deadline is, what's next in chronological order, setting, like we said, these smaller goals instead of an entire year of like, we have to get, so much done, breaking it down month by month, week by week, so that it seems attainable, right? Well,
yeah. Well, it's absolutely true. And let's just, if I could focus on one word on this entire slide, it's the word realistic. And, you know, I- you can have any kind of ideal view that you would like, but if it's not realistic, you're setting yourself up for anger, frustration, burnout, and your team up for failure. And so, it just unfortunately, I'm older than I used to be. Fortunately, I'm wiser, but unfortunately, that has had to come with some age. But one of the things I noticed is my productivity level later at night is way less than it used to be. You know, back in my 20s and 30s, I could say, hey, I'll go have dinner, hang out with the family a little bit, and then I'll go work from 10 to midnight and I'll just crush a couple hours of stuff. no big deal. Well, I I can do that. I can stay up that late. Not a problem. However, the efficiency rate and the quality of which is coming on during that is way down. And so I started doing this thing where it's like, well, I'll just get to that tonight. I'll do that tonight. And then when took a look backwards and said, last time I said that, what did I actually accomplish and why? I'm like, well, I was distracted. What about the time before that? Well, and I had an excuse for everything. And I came to the realization I'm about 50% efficient after 9 p.m. That's that's where the age of 45 has landed me now, Julie. And so I need to be realistic about that. The same is true for you inside the work. Well, if I didn't get interrupted ever, I could get all this done. Well, thanks. The interruptions are coming and you're not stopping it no matter what you do. So why don't we be realistic about what that means? Well, my team should be able to finish these tasks and they should know better. Anytime you say should with goals, we got to stop and say, okay, what does should mean? Does that mean if it was you? Or does that mean they're capable, they're equipped, and they're ready to do it? Those are two different things.
Well, something that I think goes along with that, another word that's not on this slide are boundaries. And I think you kind of alluded to like the realistic goals of you aren't productive after 9 p.m. for whatever reason these days. But I think it's also setting those boundaries on these realistic goals. And so sometimes that may be that you don't take phone calls between, 4 to 6 or whatever that boundary is that you can set for yourself, whether it's self-imposed or, imposed as a whole. I think that really helps you attain those goals realistically when you can set those boundaries. If it's the interruptions that are getting in the way, how do we manage those? How do we best manage those? Well, everyone can expect that my door is closed from 4 to 6. I cannot take any phone calls, no interruptions. That's the hard boundary from me. Anytime
Yeah.
before then, come on in, or, whatever, wherever you work from home, you're in an office, whatever that is, the door is open. And so I think boundaries are a really big thing when we're talking about goals and burnout, right? And I think whatever that is, I talk in here about celebrating small wins. It's, I feel like too much these days, it's about something that's so unattainable for whatever reason. It's like, we're going to finish tax season and do 2,400 returns. Can't wait to celebrate April 16th, right? Like, that's great. That seems so far away when you process the first one, right? Like, it's so far away. But celebrate the first one being processed, celebrate the first one being done, celebrate, celebrate the small wins so it gets the win back in the sales and it doesn't seem
Yeah.
so dreadful for that time period.
And Julie, this doesn't have to be a team celebration either. Someone pointed me to a blog article that was put out by, I think it was the software company Todoist, which is like a checklist type app. And it talked about some of the daily routine. And a key part of ending your day is memorializing what did you accomplish that day, right? It's so easy to go, well, I got to end my day by plotting what I didn't finish to the next day and the next week. And that's necessary. But we should also then say, hey, I didn't get these things done. I got a time and place for those tomorrow, the day after, whatever it may be. But here's what I did get done. Awesome. I I delegated this. I finished these couple of returns. I had an educational side. So just going back and even if it's that individual memorializing and that celebration in that small way, helps us just to reflect back and say, hey, we are accomplishing things. There might still be stuff to do, but we're accomplishing things. And that kind of emphasis helps bring some balance to some of the burnout that can happen. If you're working 20 hours a day, you got to solve that problem first. You're still going to burn out even if you celebrate the wins. Okay. But celebrating those wins, I think, is important, even if it's just you memorializing.
Yeah, and no, Will, I think you brought up a great key word that, delegate. How often, you said you're working 20 hours. How are you going to figure that out? Usually it's through delegation, right? And I think oftentimes, I know you'll probably agree with me, but you go into a firm and the firm owner, the firm leader, whoever that is, they're like, I can just do it better. Well, I know it's going to get done right if I do it. How many times do you hear that, Will? Every time?
Oh, yes, constantly.
And so I think it's, I think your teammates may not do it the way that you do it. And you have to be okay with that. You just have to know that there's A to Z and let's say the task list. Everyone starts at A. And as long as everyone ends up at Z, we're all okay. And we're empowering our teammates as we're going through that. We're giving them the self-confidence to continue to evolve and take on those responsibilities, to take them off your plate. So now we got you down to 18 hours a day, right? And, we've talked about this in another, webinar, but create processes, create systems. So everyone kind of knows we've got A and we've got Z, and this is what should happen in between. Everyone's going to do their own thing without a doubt. And, I think it's really coming to terms with that. Even I struggle with that. Will, I'm sure you struggle with that sometimes too, is people are going to do, it how their brain, their perception, their reality, but it is okay. And I think as long as you provide that open door that you can have the conversation about it, right? It's not like that dictatorship, micromanagement. Let them go do it. Let them fly. Let's see what happens. We say in here, nothing's a mistake unless it gets out the door, right? So delegate, let everybody have a chance, and, set those boundaries again of what that looks like, and kind of let everybody be able to kind of, do what they can do.
In the classic book, Crucial Conversations, it talks about there's a difference between getting what you want and getting your way. And just, thinking about that in terms of the firm and saying, hey, we need to get what we want, the right work product that's out by the deadline, that builds confidence internally and externally. Getting my way is exactly how they use color coding on the spreadsheet, this or that, or where they put things on different monitors. We've got to stop sometimes trying to focus on getting our way and trying to replicate ourselves with our teams. And instead of say, what's the real end goal that we're chasing? And I need to provide information, to your point on the screen about clear instructions, expectations, quality standards. I need to provide that information. And my way is a way for it to get done, but it doesn't have to be the way for it to get done, because we're focusing on what we want, not on our way. And so I think that's something that we have to think about. Julie, when I hear people push back about delegation too, and it's one thing for me to say, hey, look, yes, it will save you 30 minutes this time to just do it yourself. But if you teach them, by the time this is the third or fourth time in, you're time ahead, and then everything is gravy past there. But when I say that, I get one of two facial responses. One is like, yeah, you're right. Let's just do it. The other is, but I'm so overwhelmed that I can't do that. Let me tell you something. If that's your response, you're not overwhelmed. And I know that feels backwards, because once you're so overwhelmed, you'll have no choice but to do that in order for everything else not to start to fall apart, right? And don't try to delegate the world at once. Do one thing at a time. It can be small pieces. That's okay. Get positive experience. Let that help drive you forward, and kind of provide that inertia as you step.
Well, and Will, I'm just going to add to that, especially as we're here at a day after a deadline. And, if you're on this call, what did you do in the last 2 weeks that drove you nuts? What is something that you're like, oh my gosh, if I have to do this again, I'm going to scream. Make those notes in those moments. And now is the time to now delegate. Now is the time to teach your team to do whatever that is. Find the person where they love to do those things, whatever it is, and run with it. It's like, I started this with I don't love the week leading up to the tax deadline. I love this week because it's just full of so many opportunities to make sure that last week is better next time. And I think delegation is a huge part of that, as I'm sure everyone's feeling a little burnout from the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I think when you and I talk about this, we talk about communicating openly. And I think this is really key to burnout. I think what is key, is having those conversations openly. And it's not, I hear so many people say, well, we do reviews. Well, we know where they stand. Well, we know how many tax returns they can do. Well, we know how many accounting clients they can manage. We know how many payrolls they can run. But do you? Like, any one of us can run a report to get, that data, but having that conversation of how are those people feeling? What does it look
Yeah.
like when you come up to the deadline? What is the overall cultural feel as you get close to those, right? And how can we move
Yeah.
those things around and delegate them so that we have the right people doing the right things, right? And I think really that is what the difference is between a great firm and a good firm, is being able to openly communicate about what is your workload, what is driving you nuts, what is dragging you down, what are you dreading on that to-do list that you keep skipping every day because you just don't want to do it, right? What are those things? And I think in this industry, and Will, you can kind of speak to this, like for whatever reason, I have found that the psyche of someone having to have that conversation, and instead of being like, oh, things are great, right? Things are great. Instead of just being able to say, you know what, I think if you could take these two clients and you could figure out a different way to get that done, I'm happy to review it, but I just don't think I can actually prep this. That is such a hard conversation in this industry. And I think we've got to change, that. Like it is
Yeah.
completely fine. Don't kill yourself. Don't you burn out while I've got someone over here at 3 o'clock that's bored because they don't have enough. So how do we, switch and be able to communicate that openly amongst the team?
So let me start with this. As soon as I see the level of transparency that's in a firm, I can predict their level of success as they try to grow and shift. And right, those are directly correlated with one another. The less transparent you are, the more struggles you're going to have. I remember being with a firm, and the owners would say, "We can't tell any of this to any of the staff." I felt handicapped as the outside consultant going, and I told them, I was like, "If we can't share this with the team, you're going to fail." So one, what's your transparency level, right? I think that's directly correlated. Secondly, open communication. This has a greater impact on fighting some of the burnout psychologically than you realize. Um, and it goes both directions. I need management in the firm to tell the team, hey, we know we got a lot going on. We're tired. Because then the team is going to go one of two things. Either the team also has a lot going on and they're tired. Then they go, oh, it's not just me. And we can push through this together and work together to find a solution. Or the team can go, oh, well, how can I help? I've got some capacity, or I can do things a little bit faster. And don't sit here and get mad at your team for not always being at maximum efficiency. People will take the time that they are given to complete the tasks they are given. So if we present them with the challenge, they know, yeah, I could probably pick up my pace a little bit and snag one or two more things this week. Not a problem. Fantastic. We also need that the other way around. Staff needs to be able to say to management, go, look, man, I'm getting crushed. I'm getting crushed. I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling worn out. And we got to say it before we're at that breaking point. If management, if no one's saying it to you, one, you're not being transparent enough about other things that are going on. And two, we got some cultural things we got to work through, whether it's with individual staff, the firm as a whole, and in terms of just kind of safety, if you will, right? Saying, oh, I can't say that I'm burned out, or they're gonna just look to get rid of me. Management knows that's not true. We know in a good firm, if you're burned out, I want to look to support you so I can get the best from you. You're only burned out most likely because you've been giving your all. And so we've got to look at how can we make that all a healthy all instead of an unhealthy all. But if we're not sharing it, we're missing opportunities to help one another and really promote good things within the firm.
Which leads us to about taking regular breaks.
Yes.
I know you love your nap time, Will, but I think it's really important throughout the day to whatever you, whether you're in a firm, whether you're at home, going for a walk, getting up and just walking away from your desk. And, I think sometimes in tax season, right, people just want to get done head down, but to be able to get recharged, you've got to really take a moment for yourself, right? Whatever that is. And I think from the management leadership position, really fostering and empowering your team to be able to do that. We talk about, vacations. I know firms are now shutting down for certain weeks out of the year, especially after these busy times, whether it's a week or a day or whatever, just to say, hey, listen, we really thank you for giving your all for this time period. This is our give back to you. And I love seeing some of those things. For me, I think it's really hard to completely disconnect, even when you go on vacation. Even though I know it's what you're supposed to do, but what I have found for me that works best, even though like it goes against even what I, say on the screen, it sets me up for success is to be able to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. even on vacation, and I'm going to go do my me time. I'm going to go work out, but then I'm going to, for an hour, do emails or whatever work I'm going to do. Because I don't know about you, Will, but for me, if I completely disconnect by like Wednesday or Thursday, I'm like, oh, what's in that email? Oh no. Well, then like you're in the airport or whatever coming back and you're like opening it up like slowly, like because you're afraid of what it is. So for me, it's like, how are you able to manage those breaks that are healthy for you? And setting, like I said,
Yeah.
like that positive, that setting that boundary to say, hey, listen, I'm going to check my email every day, every morning while I'm on vacation, but it may take me 24 hours because if it doesn't hit, by then. And I think that's what's really important is, we go back to like that, the boundary of those breaks and what does that look like for each individual member. But as we're getting towards the end of the year, do you have teammates who haven't taken vacation time the entire year? Could we encourage them to just take a break, whether it's a long weekend or a couple days here and there, just to make sure they're recharged as we go into that new year?
Yeah, you've got to set the right example, whether it's using your delayed delivery on email so it doesn't, you're not trying to communicate that you have to work late at night. When you're taking time off, I put into my count, I try to actually disconnect when I can, Julie, a little bit different than you. But I look and I say, all right, I've got obviously my out of office to make it have a real meaningful information about when I'm actually going to be back. I also want to look and say, hey, when I come back, my first 2 days back, who am I meeting with? And I want to proactively email them before I leave and say, hey, I know we're meeting on these days. I'm going to be out of the office a few days before. If you send me over something, I'll see it in time to prep with it for our meeting, but I'm probably not going to respond to you until we get into the meeting and we have our discussion. So I'm trying to do things to set expectation. I also take the first 2 to 3 hours of my first day back in the office or of the afternoon of my last day out of the office and just say, I'm going to take this time to clean up email, reset expectations, look at my calendar, and feel fresh. So those are a couple of things that I do instead of sometimes in addition to looking at email. But it's really about the expectations and then how do I plan it for myself beforehand and a little bit afterwards to really make sure I'm taking that time off. If you have your team members take time off, fantastic. Have them put in their calendar an hour or two when they get back to reacclimate and to readjust so they know they have the time and they can fully take that time.
Well, Will, we are really passionate about burnout. I know we're coming to the end here. So, we talked about disconnecting annually. You talked a lot about in the beginning on focused on the goal, not the method, which I think just needs, we're just going to say it again because I think it's really important in that delegation. And, we talked about realistic goals, delegating, communicating openly, taking the breaks, focus on the outcome. All those things I think we've really hit hard on, especially as, we're coming out of this tax season. So, Will and I are here for any questions. You can get a hold of either one of us, and we hope that no one's really experiencing horrible burnout and that you can fix it by the end of the year before you get back into another tax season.
All right, I've got a couple of questions for you both. And one is if you talked about a couple of minutes ago, you talked about kind of breaking up the day. And what's your favorite way to break up the day?
Well, I love when it's warm out to just go for a walk, even if it's just around the block. Whether I'm working from home or at the office, that's probably my favorite way to just like take a moment and clear my head.
Yeah, get some vitamin
That,
D on the skin.
yeah, that and if there's pecan pie, just to go back to your question
But you
earlier.
could walk with it and eat it while you walk.
Yes,
You could do that and
yes.
get both, right? And that's kind of like almost a neutral calorie thing. So that's perfect. Julie, early on, you mentioned calendar. And when you mentioned that, I was like, ooh, I want to ask a question about calendar. Are you a wall calendar, physical writing on the wall, or are you a digital calendar, or do you have it in a thing on your desk? Which way do you guys use? What do y'all two of you use?
So I'm definitely a digital calendar. So like even tasks that, aren't necessarily meetings or, whatever go on my calendar. And so I'm
Yep.
carving out time in order to do that. Now I am a traditional to-do list girl. So like what Will talked about, how I feel like I have done what I need to do each day is I write down my to-do list the night before I leave the office for what I'm going to accomplish the next day in the priority order that I would like to get it done. As we all know, we get those things that trump it. But for me, checking those off or crossing them off gives me some sense of satisfaction that I've at least accomplished what I need to.
Yeah. And that's a physical
I
list,
am
or is
That's a
that still a
physical
digital?
list,
It
like
is a
write it
physical
out,
list.
pen and paper.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that myself. How about you,
I'm
Will?
a digital calendar and um, digital list until I get to that point where it's like, wait, if I find myself not able to focus on a task because I keep thinking about the next task, that's my indicator that I need to move from just a digital list to a physical list. And that way I can just, whenever something comes to my mind, reach over to the side, write it down, and then move on my way. So there's some kind of tipping point where I go from digital to I need on paper just to calm myself and allow myself to focus. So
Gotcha. All right. And then two more things. One, um, Julie, give a 1 minute, 30 seconds, whatever it is, to define what is Sulet Consulting. And because I think you guys have been doing this for us for, I don't even know how long now, a year and a half. And I don't know that either of you have ever said, hey, this is how I make my living. And because you both are, in consulting, and Julie, you work for a firm, but you also have consulting as well. But just share, with our audience, what it is that you do, how you can help them outside of, attending these sessions. And again, right in front of you is how you can connect with them. But Julie?
Yeah, so the name that I like to use is Empower CPA, but we won't get into that. But what I love to do, and like I said, I didn't know my passion would be before coming into this firm, is like, how do we transform a firm and empower everyone inside of it to be the best that they can be? How do we get efficiency? How do we break down some of those barriers? How do we create that transparency that Will talks about? And Will and I, Will came to my firm early on and helped go through our firm when I needed some backup per se, or to use that. And so I think it's great to have this outside perspective, especially like I've transformed a firm that was very, what you would want to say is very compliance driven to being an advisory firm, and we hit tons of hiccups along the way. And so I just wanted to create a shortcut and community for those people trying to do the same thing, because I didn't necessarily feel like I had that support when we were going through that. And so that's really what I love to do.
Great. And how about it, Will?
yeah. Yeah, so I like to say I live at the intersection of people and process, where where the fun and the magic both tend to happen at the same time. So I'll help firms either as an outsourced change management director, if you will. Sounds fancy, not quite as fancy as what it sounds, but helping firms work through and navigating change, technology, process, responsibilities, commercial strategy, any of those kind of changes. And then for firms with only one or two partners, I will do a lot of executive coaching with those firm owners and helping them because quite frankly, it's lonely for a lot of them. They got their head down, they're doing a lot of work, and they're trying to at the same time maintain uh, this business and yet keep their head up and down and up and down, and it's difficult, and their team can't relate to what they go through. and so they need someone to kind of help them in that vein. So physically being in over 400 firms through my time in the profession tends to add some value for that.
Gotcha.
You like
So
to be
one
the
or
bad cop, right, Will?
No, sometimes.
well, sometimes the bad cop is needed. And Julie, I mean, so Will said you said kind of the coaching is smaller, can go down to smaller firm, but your consulting side is a little bit on the like what's kind of minimum firm size where the coaching really makes sense, or with two
Oh,
services make sense.
yeah, Gary, I'll just say that the coaching stuff, if there's more than 2 partners, it's probably not the right fit. And then it's more of the change management director type role, just because
Okay.
personal differences between multiple partners is fun. On the consulting side, I don't really have a downsize limit. It's more like, hey, once we get smaller into 2 partners or less, does the role that Will's playing and how we title it really make sense? The change management director versus executive coach for the firm
Gotcha.
almost are synchronous. So
Okay. And Julie, what about you? Firm size.
I mean, I'm probably a little bit like Will, but I mean, I've worked with firms with 2 people, right? And all the way up to 30. And it just, just being able to really, set those expectations, those goals, and kind of what you're doing as you work with different groups.
And then do each of you offer just like a 15-minute, hey, let's have a conversation and talk about your current situation and see if we can help?
Yeah,
we could
absolutely.
chat for an hour.
Yeah, it's good to make sure you're a good fit, personality,
Right.
and all those things.
Yeah.
Okay, well, great.
Yeah.
Well, if you're on here or if you're on here live or you're listening to this recording, scan these codes there and you can connect with Julie, connect with Will. Or if you need to reach them and you can't reach them for whatever reason, you can always reach us at info@insightfulaccountant.com and we can certainly pass along any messages. But Will, Julie, thank you both so much. And I guess we'll have another discussion before we get deep into Thanksgiving. I'll have to come up with a much better question because we've already gone through the food. We'll have to come up with something better. So thank you all who could attend. We certainly appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you guys in about a month. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.